story of Silver and Blood is a persistent cycle of the Bloodborne wanting immortality and the Church seeking to kill them to restore the temporal order. Yet, there is one very unique character who stands out within this conflict. He is well known and often referenced for his alchemical genius, despite only having a few minutes of screen time in the main story. He is Albrecht Magnus, Minexus' first alchemist, scientist, and doctor, and also a bell ringer of the Tempest Church. But what makes him so unique and important? In the conflict between the Bloodborne and the Church, it seems that Albrecht has chosen an obvious side. He is a bell ringer after all. However, his relationship with the Church has more to do with their transactional relationship rather than him believing in the cause. The Church has exclusive access to Albrecht's research, while Albrecht has the silver blood, freezing his age. What makes Albrecht even more interesting is that he is indifferent to the concept of immortality. To understand how he is so unbothered with the idea of living forever or killing those who dare to become immortal, we need to look into Albrecht's childhood. Born to an ill mother, Albrecht inherited her poor genetics, which resulted in him being mute, barely able to walk, and chronically sick. His mother passed when he was still a baby. However, his mind was a vessel for ideas which surpassed his time. Determined to cure himself of his genetic ailment, he came up with the idea that he could find medicine from the natural world. This was unheard of, insane even, during his time. His faith in any god was also shaky. He believed himself to be cursed from birth and assumed he must have committed some unforgivable sin to spend his life suffering. It's important to note here that his pursuit was always medicine. He didn't want to be sick, but immortality wasn't the goal. This is why he is a healer, a doctor. His story mirrors that of Asclepius, whose rod you can see hanging off of Albrecht's staff. Asclepius was also born to a mother who died during childbirth. Raised by Chiron, he excelled in the ways of medicine to the point that he was able to reverse death. It was a consequence of his capabilities. Like Albrecht, he never sought to deceive death or chase immortality. Zeus would eventually perceive Asclepius' healing as a direct challenge to the god's power and killed him. This is also what makes Albrecht so unique, even dangerous, within the conflict between the Bloodborne and the Church. His indifference means that while his knowledge can be bought, he has no moral or religious investments to either side. Albrecht is potentially older than the rest of the cast. When he was 8 years old, a rainstorm drowned all of humankind, much like what happened during Noah's Ark. In Noah's Ark, God instructed Noah to take his wife and a pair of every living creature. After God killed everything, Noah and those creatures were tasked with repopulating the earth. Though, in Albrecht's story, he is the sole survivor. Instead of drowning him, the water healed him of all of his afflictions. Water became the first form of medicine witnessed by Albrecht. He eventually theorized that he was spared because he was a herald of the next era of humanity. He believed, like the concept of evolution, that each era of people are tasked to further humanity. If you remember from his childhood, Albrecht was the one who came up with the concept of medicine, while others of his time didn't believe in it. This alone shows how Albrecht was ahead of his time and the only person worthy of joining the next generation. He'd go on to be the first alchemist, healer, and scientist, giving the Church access to science alongside faith. This concept is inspired by the person we get Albrecht Magnus' name from, Saint Albertus Magnus, also known as Albert the Great. Fun fact, Albrecht is an old German name, while Albert is a universalized modern version. Saint Albertus was the first to bridge science and faith for the Church. He, like Albrecht, lived in a time where people never considered medicinal uses for plants. He believed that to understand God was to understand God's creations. To do that, he observed the natural world and experimented, much like how Albrecht sought a cure within plants. In fact, the first time Albrecht understood the healing properties of water outside of himself is right after the storm. He saw a sprout growing from a rotting tree trunk. The same water that killed so many was also able to encourage new life. This further shows how Albrecht's interests are in life rather than death or cheating death. To understand how important this is, we have to consider how water moves compared to the other molecules in the human body. While molecules such as glucose or amino acids chemically break down and become stored as energy, it is water which enables these reactions to happen. Without water, the body cannot sustain life. And like water, which we don't often think about outside of drinking water equates to good health, the story doesn't put Albrecht in our face because it doesn't need to. Albrecht's importance permeates behind the scenes. In fact, every time you purchase something in the game with Soli, you are using a currency that Albrecht created from liquid gold. Advances to society like this is one of the reasons he was spared. Now, while the war on immortality is waging on, Albrecht decides it's more interesting to make other universes. What's so great about being immortal when you can just be God? And sure, while you have characters like Lamine, who is Dracula's daughter, and Seth, who is the Saint of Aeon, they are ultimately bound by their respective factions. All Albrecht wants to do is shove things in bottles and watch what happens. The war can continue on, and he remains indifferent. Traditionally, alchemists use a bottle, often called the alchemical egg, to conduct their observations. You can see this bottle on top of Albrecht's staff. Inside this bottle, you're supposed to put your prima materia, also known as your base matter. You hermetically seal it so nothing can contaminate it, and place it within a furnace for steady heat. The first time we see Albrecht interacting with one of these bottles is in the event Among Strangers. Since this event deals with multiple worlds within worlds themes, we see at least 3 variations of Albrecht within it. In the beginning of said event, Albrecht has successfully created another universe inside the alchemical bottle. This concept came from the real-life Rosarium Philosophorum, also known as the Rosary of Philosophers. A goal of alchemy is understanding how transformation can be controlled, repeated, and completed. One idea was to create a sealed vessel where nothing could escape or enter, thus not contaminating the process. Inside the bottle is a king and queen, a bath or liquid, and eventually a merged figure, which is the unity of opposites. This idea is played with in Among Strangers when Stella Noah, a female version of Noah Nevernight, is introduced into the game. But back to the bottle. It is crucial that it's made of glass. To be an alchemist is to be an observer, which calls back to Saint Albertus, who you'll remember is Albrecht's namesake. Saint Albertus believed in observing zoology and botany in order to understand God's natural world. And what better way to understand God and his world besides create a copy of that world? As above, so below, as is said in the Emerald Tablet. So to be God is to have the ability to create a world, to create man. In alchemy, an artificially created miniature human is called a homunculus. This practice was a way for alchemists to understand generation, life, and of course, transformation. The most well-known writing and recipe for creating homunculi comes from Paracelsus. You might recognize that name from 2 of the other characters, Pierre Paracelsus and Regina Paracelsus, who we will talk about later. Paracelsus's recipe requires the alchemist to put semen and horse dung into a bottle, seal it, and observe it as it begins to change and take on living form over the next 40 days. Eventually, it becomes a small human-like creature. Now, am I saying that Albrecht is jerking it into bottles of horse poop and creating other universes with it? I mean, Impuza did comment that his lab smelled awful, and he got really defensive about it. Also, if we remember in Noah's Ark, Noah and his wife had to repopulate the humans after everyone else got wiped out. So where did the other humans come from if Albrecht was the sole survivor? I'm just gonna leave that question here. But let's assume that Albrecht isn't everyone's ancestor in that type of way, and there aren't any biological children that we know of. However, he has his 3 disciples, Pierre Paracelsus, Isaac Van Helsing, and Nicole Flamel. There are plenty of wonderful paternal characters in Silver and Blood, such as Clive adopting Hattie, or Goldlin taking Amy in when she was a baby lost at sea. Yet the relationship between Albrecht and his disciples are not conventionally warm like Clive and Goldlin's relationships. When he took Isaac in, Isaac was still a child and freshly traumatized after watching his whole family drown during a Black Blood breakout. While Isaac hoped for a warmer relationship, Albrecht said that it would be a relationship between scientist and test subject. Now, that is a pretty cold thing to tell a child, let alone one who just watched his whole family die. Another one of his disciples, Pierre Paracelsus, was his vice commander. He likely knew her whole life since her grandmother, Regina Paracelsus, was one of his collaborators. Yet, Pierre stole the totem that Regina and Albrecht created to deal with the death calamity, should it ever unseal, and ran off to Sunset Isle where she would die fighting said calamity. Given Albrecht's wisdom and intensive study of all of his subjects, it's highly unlikely that he wouldn't know Pierre would run off and get herself killed. He promised Regina he would take care of her, and Pierre was barely an adult when she ran off. Why wouldn't he stop her? That's the difference between Albrecht serving as a paternal figure versus Clive or Goldland. At first glance, Albrecht seems like he doesn't care. He is just using these kids for his experiments and discarding them until his next assignment. However, this begs the question, is it better to be a parent who gives their child everything they need and leave them be, or a parent who coddles their child every step of the way? To answer this, we need to look at the 3 stages of alchemy: Negrito, Albedo, and Rubedo. I mentioned earlier that materia needs to be hermetically sealed within a glass bottle, so nothing can come out or contaminate it. What's inside goes through these 3 stages. Negrito is where the mass breaks down. Next, it's purified in Albedo. In the final stage, it's put back together into something new, which is exactly what Albrecht went through. He decayed in Negrito as a fragile child, purified, Albedo, during the storm. Rubedo is when he was put back together as Albrecht Magnus, the alchemist. It's not a bad deal at all. If it worked for him, why not put his disciples through the same process? He metaphorically sealed them individually in alchemist bottles, added more materia, allowed it all to decay and purify so it can recombine. You have Pierre, who fused with the remains of her ancestors. Van Helsing is a member of the Silver Cross, expert in future artifacts, and a member of the Hermetic Order. Nicole Flamel was a dancer who lost her legs and was built prosthetic ones by Albrecht. Those legs dance with more precision than her former human ones. And a fun side fact, Nicole is named after Nicholas Flamel, who is credited with coming up with the Philosopher's Stone, which is said to grant immortality. The legend is that Nicholas Flamel and his wife are still alive today and have been spotted throughout time, kind of fitting for Silver and Blood. So back to the question, why didn't Albrecht stop Pierre, likely knowing she was running towards her death? Because as a scientist, an alchemist, you allow your experiments to transform on their own terms without contaminating it by meddling. Only then can true purification and transformation occur. To Albrecht, it would have been a major disservice to his disciples if he stopped any of them from taking their individual paths. That also goes to show how different of a character Albrecht is. While everyone is obsessed with controlling or rewriting fate, Albrecht believes in letting it run its course while he takes notes. And another fun fact, if you're into alchemy, each of Albrecht's disciples has only one ingredient in their time-worn recipe. Pierre's is salt, representing the body. Salt is used all over Sunset Isle to help manage the longings of blood beasts. Van Helsing's is sulfur, representing passion and fire. Nicole is mercury, which is also what her prosthetic legs are made from. Mercury represents spirit, consciousness, and fluidity. But on the note of Pierre's death, remember that Albrecht himself doesn't fear death. He is indifferent to it. In Echoes of Tempest, Lucille's event, it is stated that at the end, among other bell ringers, is confirmed to be deceased. And among strangers, one variation of Albrecht from one of his bottled worlds had already died. However, dead Albrecht had left all his notes in his lab, likely because he knew that another Albrecht will come and use it to further the course of knowledge. Hence, why he was spared in that storm. That's what makes Albrecht such an unbothered, unique character. Silver and Blood's idea of immortality is to be remembered and for your memories to be housed by a conscious vessel. Albrecht himself doesn't desire fame or remembrance. As long as his scientific findings are able to move on and someone else picks up where he left off long after he's gone, he has fulfilled his purpose. Whether it's through his collaborators like Regina, his disciples, or the church, Albrecht heavily impacts the course of the story without needing screen time, the way water dictates our longevity without needing us to think much about it. There you have it, the most unbothered character in Silver and Blood. If you like this video, please share it, subscribe, join the lore Discord, and let me know if there's anyone else you'd like a video on. Special thanks to Seakeys for drawing the sickly Albrecht child, Rabbit Zombie Bun for her lending her science expertise once again, and Dee, the Albrecht expert, for fact-checking and correcting my script.